Welcome back, students. Today we are going to discuss the second major phylum of the animal kingdom, and that is Cnidaria. So let's begin. Well, the Cnidaria, they are also known by many other names. The phylum Cnidaria is also called as phylum Coelenteratia. So I will write down it here as Coelenteratia. Okay. And these Cnidarians, they are also commonly called as sac-like animals or nettle animals. Okay, they are also known by these names. Well, they they are more advanced than sponges in having. So how they are advanced? Because they possess true tissues. They possess true tissues. Now you can understood that if they have tissues, so it means what type of level of organization do they possess? So it simply signifies that they have tissue level of organization. Level of organization. Okay. So simply you can understand by this, and they may be solitary. They may be colonial. Okay, they may be solitary, they may be colonial. Okay, and they include about 9,000 species. They include about 9,000 species, and they are aquatic, which means that they cannot be found in air, they cannot be found on the dry surface, on the surface of the earth, but they are only found in the seas, freshwater, or marine. But they are aquatic. Okay. However, most of them are marine. Most of them are marine. Okay. And talking about the Hydra, which is the most famous coelenterate, or we can say the Cnidarian, it's actually the freshwater. Hydra is a freshwater coelenterate. Now, let's discuss the major or the important characteristic features of this phylum. Important characteristic features. Okay. So what are the important characteristic features of this phylum? Now, first characteristic feature of this phylum is that they are sessile. They are sessile or are free living. They are sessile or free swimming or free living or free floaters. Okay. What do you mean by sessile? It means that they remain attached to the rock or to the bed surface or to the substratum. Okay. And what are the free swimmers? They float freely in the water. And Another important feature that is they exhibit tissue level of organization, which I discussed earlier. Tissue level of organization. They exhibit tissue level of organization. Now, what do you mean by tissue level of organization? The Nigerians have tissue but lack organs and organ systems. That is why they have the tissue level of organization. For example, you have studied in your previous lecture that the porphyra, they possess cells, and cells do not get differentiated into the tissues. That's why they possess cellular level of organization. But in case of Cnidaria, this phylum, phylum exhibits, or we can say the Coelenterata, they possess the tissue level of organization, because the cells in this phylum, they get differentiated into their respective tissues by carrying out common functions. So that's why they have the tissue level of organization. Now, coming to the next important point here, that they are acoelomates. That they are acoelomates. That they are acoelomates. They do not possess the true coelom, or we can say they do not possess the body cavity. Okay, otherwise they would have been called as coelomates, but they are acoelomates. This A here represents absent. It means the coelom is not present in this phylum, or we can say the Cnidarians. Okay. Now, talking about their symmetry. So what's their symmetry? They are radially symmetrical. They are radially symmetrical. Okay, they are radially symmetrical. Now I'm going to show you here some of the examples of the Cnidarians. Let me show you. Yeah, here you can see, for example, we have here Hydra, we have Rhizostoma, we have Matridium, we have Obelia, Aurelia, Physalia. Similarly, we have Panatula, we have Fungia. Okay, so these are actually the examples of what? They are the examples of the Coelenterators. They are the Coelentrates. Okay, or we can say the phylum Coelenterata. And talking about this Hydra, this is the famous Coelenterate, or this is the famous Cnidarian, and these are other Coelentrates. Okay, so these are the examples of what we call as the Coelentrates. You can have the picture of these things in your mind, so that it would be easy for you to recall those. At least you should memorize the name of at least 3 Coelentrates or 5. For example, we have here Hydra. This is important, and this is very common and common freshwater Coelenterate. And this is Obelia, and this is Aurelia. At least you should keep the name of these 3. Okay. Well, these have been divided into the respective classes, which we will discuss at the last of this topic. But just remember, for this time, just remember these examples. Okay. So coming back to our text. So what we discussed here, they are radially symmetrical. Now I have already told you what is a radial symmetry. This I have already discussed with you. What's the difference between the radial symmetry and what is the difference radial symmetry and bilateral symmetry. So here in this picture you will see that this is actually shows the the radial symmetry in the Coelentrates, or we can say the Cnidarians. So here this is the radial plane 1 and this is the radial plane 2. But the example can be this radial symmetry. This can be also found in some sponges, okay, and Equinodermata also. But this time we are discussing the group Cnidaria this time. So this is actually the radial symmetry. So let's make it simple. This is plane 1, this is plane 2. Now coming back to the topic, there is also an example of the biradial symmetry. Biradial symmetry. And this biradial symmetry is shown by anthozoans. Anthozoans. And this is actually the class. This anthozoa is actually the class. And the examples, best example for this is sea animal. Example is sea animal. Well, they show the biradial symmetry. Otherwise, usually the symmetry that can be found in the coelentrates or the cnidaria is the radial symmetry. Radial symmetry. Okay. Now, talking about the body wall. Talking about the body wall, they are usually diploblastic animals. Diploblastic animals. So when we say diploblastic animals, the word here diplo, it's simply, or di here simply represents that they have two embryonic cell layers, or we can say the germ layers. Germ layers. That is outer ectoderm and inner endoderm, and in between them there is a gel-like layer, and we call that as mesoglea. Well, this mesoglea, it's actually non-cellular and it doesn't possess cells. If it would have been composed of cells, if it would have been containing cells, then this layer, or with this gelatinous layer, this would have been then differentiated into the mesoderm, and we would have called it that mesoderm. And ultimately this will lead to the character which we call as a diploblastic character. But the cnidarians, they are actually the diploblastic. They do not possess these three, they do not possess the mesoderm layer, and that's why they only contain these two layers. That's outer ectoderm and the inner, the endoderm. And in between lies mesoglea. Okay. So we can say that the cnidarians develop from the two germ layers, in other words. So that's why they are diploblastic, like sponges. Now, coming to the next page here. So I have already told you that they are acoelomate. Now coming to the their gastrovascular cavity, or we can say the coelentron, in other words, gastrovascular cavity. Wait a second, wait, got stopped. Gastrovascular cavity, and this gastrovascular cavity can also be called as coelentron. Okay, coelentron. And this coelentron, this opens through mouth, which is also known by another name, by another name that's called as hypostome. So we can also call it as hypostome. So this is actually hypostome here. Okay. So in this case, there is no second opening, which we call as anus. Okay, there is no anus. So anus is absent. I will make it here cross, so because it represents the absence of something. So anus is not present. There is only one single opening, and that acts as both an ingestive organ as well as a digestive organ, so that it can also be used for the ingestion as well as for egestion. And in this way, we can call this as incomplete digestive system because there is only single opening. Incomplete digestive system, or we can say the gastrovascular cavity. Okay, so actually this body cavity, it does both digestion and the circulation of food. Now, talking about the nutrition. So what kind of nutrition can be found in them? Well, they are holozoic and carnivores. Sorry, this is actually holozoic and carnivores. Okay. So this is their nature in terms of what we call as the nutrition. They are holozoic as well as carnivores. Now talking about the digestion. The digestion in case of the coelenteritis is intracellular and extracellular. Now let's understand this fact. How is this possible at the same time intracellular as well as extracellular? Okay. Now, actually, in case of let's talking about the extracellular or the intracellular. Actually, this in case of intracellular process or this nature can be seen when the food is taken inside the food vacuoles, and there the digestion takes place. Food vacuoles. So this takes place actually in the food vacuoles. That's why the intracellular can be asked. And partly it's taken extracellular, which is also which can also be called as intercellular. Okay, so this is intercellular. So this is all about the digestion. Now the important point here is that the gastrovascular cavity that also acts as hydroskeleton against which the contractile cells can work. So this is an important point here. The mouth is actually surrounded by many finger-like projections, and we call them as tentacles. This can easily be seen in hydra. See, for example, if this is a hydra, here you will be able to see these finger-like projections. These finger-like projections, they are called the tentacles. Okay, this is the dorsal side and this is the ventral side. So they are called as tentacles. Now, what's their function? Their function is to capture food. Their function is to capture food and also to defend. So we can say the defense. Now the important here characteristic is the presence of special group of cells called as nidoblastos. Well, talking about the nidoblastos are certain ectodermal cells, or we can say the epidermal cells. Which get modified into the stinging cells. So these are actually the epidermal cells which get modified into the stinging cells, or simply we call them as a cnidoblastos, okay, or cnidocytes. That's why this phylum got its name Cnidaria. Each cnidoblast possesses a single stinging capsule called the nematocyst. That's actually the stinging capsule, and we call that as that stinging capsule. We call that as nematocyst. Okay, so here it's actually the nematocyst. It's a stinging capsule which contains poisonous fluid, which is used against prey, fluid, or enemy. Okay, which contains poisonous fluid. So cnidoblastos are the defensive cells which are used to kill or paralyze other prey and enemies. They are found mainly found on the tentacles. Okay, for example, if we talk about the nematocyst poison in case of Physalia, which is actually a coelanterate, or we can say the cnidarian Physalia, this actually contains a poisonous fluid, and which is actually the neurotoxin. You should understand what is a neurotoxin. Neurotoxin is that kind of the toxin which attacks the nervous system or which paralyzes the nervous system. It's as it is prime attacking organ, okay, or we can say the place. Now talking about the most important character here, that is alternation of generation. Alternation of generation. This is the important character. Now this phylum, the phylum Cnidaria, this includes two distinct types of individuals. Okay. Number first is polyp. And number second is, here I'll write down as medusa. Now what's a polyp and what's medusa? So look, polyp is actually, this is sedentary. Okay, with tubular body. You should be able to differentiate between these two forms, polyp and medusa. So this is sedentary, this is tubular, okay? And the mouth is surrounded by tentacles, which can also be found in case of this, but you should be able to differentiate in between them. Okay, now this represents the most important feature that differentiates polyp from medusa, is that this represents the asexual stage. This represents the asexual stage, or we can say the asexual phase of an of the cnidaria, or we can say the any animal. Well, this polyp stage, the best examples of this polyp stage can be found in Hydra and Adamsia. These are the two best examples for the cylinder. Well, in many other forms, this polyp stage can be found, but these are the best examples. Okay. Now, talking about the medusa. Wait a second. Talking about the medusa. So, what is medusa? The line I'm not able to. Wait a second. Okay, now talking about the medusa. Medusa represents the free floating, unlike polyp, which is sedentary. So it remains at one place. It remains fixed with the substratum. Okay, but this phase or this form is free floating. So this is free floating. It can move from one place to another place easily. Okay, and it's a transparent bell-shaped having tentacles at the margin. Here the tentacles are present around mouth, but here the tentacles are present at margin. So this is margin. Okay, now this looks like umbrella. Okay, this looks like umbrella, and the mouth is at the center of the concave surface with directed downwards. And here the mouth is upwards. So I write down here his mouth is upwards. So the best example for this is that, and important that differentiates the medusa phase from the polyp phase is that it represents the sexual stage. It represents the sexual stage. Okay. Now, the best example of this is Aurelia. This is Aurelia. In case of Hydra, which is a very common freshwater coelenterates, in case of Hydra, medusa stage cannot be found. Medusa stage is absent in Hydra. This cross represents absence. This cross represents absence here, and the medusa stage, which is actually the sexual stage, this sexual stage cannot be found in Hydra. So we should be able to understand that the Hydra reproduces them through asexual means. Okay. Now I'm going to show you through an image how it looks like. Well, here you can see. So this is the medusa here. Okay, this is the medusa phase, or we can say that this is the medusa form, and this is the polyp form. So here you can literally see, but by your eyes, what's the difference between these two. This is actually the inverted, or we can say the upside down phase of the polyp phase. The medusa is actually the upside down of the polyp, and the polyp is the upside down of, we can say, the medusa. Okay, so here you will see the tentacles which are actually present at the margin. So tentacles are at the margin, and from its dorsal side you will see that it is dome shaped, and its ventral side consists of these tentacles. And here in the polyp form you will see that the tentacles are upwards, and the rest of the body is like a cylindrical in shape, and this is called the gullet. Okay, this is called the gullet, and inside this cavity well, this is called as antron, and it is nothing. This is actually the digestive tract inside the coelenterates, or inside this phase. Well, this actually here, this is the inverted position. This is the inverted shape of the of medusa. Okay, and this is a mouth here, and these are the tentacles. Hope you understand through this. I'm going to show you through another example here, so that we will discuss more things in it. So here you will be able to see that this is actually the polyp phase and polyp form, and this is actually the medusa form. So this is, and you will see that clearly you can see the difference between them. These are the tentacles, this is the mouth here, and this is here the mouth, and these are the tentacles which are at the present at the margin, and these tentacles here, they surround the mouth, and this is a gastrovascular cavity, or we can say the anteron. And the outside layer, this is actually this outside layer which is also found in here, this is called the ectodermis, or we can say the epidermis. And this inside layer, which is actually called as or here we will be able to see, and this is actually called as this inside layer, this is called as gastrodermis, or we can see the endodermis, this yellowish layer. Okay, this yellowish layer represents the endodermis, and this outside, that's clear blue, pure blue, which is actually represents the epidermal layer, or we can see the ectodermis. Now inside this here you will see that this layer, this is actually nothing but this is actually the mesoglea. Okay, in between this yellow and this pure lies this layer which is not differentiated into the mesoderm. This is actually the mesoglea. Hope you understand the two forms in the coelenterata, or any coelenterate. Well, whether it is whether it is Aurelia, whether it is well, in Hydra this case is not found, so you should be able to differentiate between them, or whether it is RMCA. Now this is called as this form, this is called as the alternation in generation. Now coming to the important here, another characteristic, that is reproduction. So how do they reproduce? Reproduction. Now they reproduce asexually and sexually. They reproduce asexually or sexually. Now talking about the first, asexual means asexual reproduction, it takes place by budding, but in polyp, as we know that the polyp represents the asexual phase, which gives rise to medusa, Okay, so in order to understand the budding, we have to take an example here. So here you can understand how the budding takes place in Hydra. So this is actually the bud, this is the outgrowth here in its initial stage, and this ultimately develops and forms a bud, which finally becomes mature, and at the end stage it gets detached from its parent body, and ultimately it settles down and then develops into a complete body, or complete Hydra, we can say in other words. So this is actually the asexual reproduction. Now talking about during what happens during the sexual reproduction. Now what happens? The medusa liberates, or we can say the releases gametes into water. And so same like female gametes and male gamete, like sperm and egg or ova. Well, they undergo fertilization, and then form a zygote. That zygote gives rise to larva. Okay. Now, the larvae of the cnidarians, they are actually the free swimmers, and they keep swimming, they keep floating, and they are ciliated. The cilia help them to locomote from one place to another place. Now the larvae of the cnidaria, they are called as planula. They are called as planula. Okay. This planula develops into a sessile polyp, which I already told you that the polyp are actually sessile and they remain fixed at one place. Okay. So we can say that in coelentrates, both the forms, whether it's polyp and the or medusa, both the forms, or we can say simply that the asexual polyp generation alternates with the sexual medusa generation. First comes the asexual generation, which is a polyp generation or polyp form generation, and another comes the medusa generation, which is a sexual generation. Okay. So this can be understood through an example or through an instance here. I'm going to show you that. So in order to understand the life history, or we can say the development in the coelentrates, let's take the example here, the example of wait a second here. Wait a second. So so we have here Obelia and this is Aurelia. Okay, so these are the two coelentrates here. We can see the cnidarians, and from here we have to start. Now this is, for example, fully developed polyp here. Okay, this is a fully developed polyp here. Now this gives rise to the female medusa and the male medusa, because I have already told you that the first form is the polyp form. So the polyp form gives rise to the medusa form, and this medusa can be male and female. Well, these two, they produce their respective gametes. For example, if this is a female medusa, this produces here egg, and this is a male medusa, and this here produces sperms. Now these sperms, they fuse with the egg and they form zygote. Now by the process of the division, the zygote becomes two-celled, and after that becomes four-celled, and ultimately this forms blastula. Well, after many divisions. Okay. Now after blastula, this develops into a free-swimming larva. We call that as planula larva, which I have already discussed with you. And this planula larva, this develops into a blastula ultimately develops into a planula, which gets settled down. Now this gets settled down on a substratum, and where it gets the nourishment for its development, and it grows more and forms a young polyp, which keeps on developing and ultimately forms a fully developed polyp. So here we see that both the stages can be found. This is a medusa stage and this is the polyp stage. Okay, or we can call this polyp stage or this polyp stage. So this is called as the alternation of generation, and either or both the forms may occur in a species, and may have many subtypes with a different structure and function, and which is actually called as the polymorphism, which is actually called as polymorphism. Okay, same is the case. You will find it here. You will find it here in case of Aurelia, which is also a coelentrate, and this is actually the budding phyrae. What happens? This is actually the adult, okay, strobila, and which gives rise to the free phyrae. Well, this free phyrae is nothing but it's actually a free swimmer or floating medusa, which gets differentiated either into a male medusa or the female medusa. Same is the case here, female medusa and male medusa. Well, these are called the oral arms, and well, one of them gets differentiated into male, and which produces the sperms, and another gets differentiated into female, which produces ova. Well, both get fertilized and they form a zygote. The zygote ultimately develops into a blastula here after a series of divisions. And this is the blastula. This gives rise to the free-swimming larva, which is known as planula. This planula settles down on a ground on a substratum while it gets its nourishment for some time, and after that it gives rise to the young schistoma. So which ultimately develops into an adult strobila. So here we can also found the two forms, and which when both two forms, and which is actually called as alternation of generation, when both polyp and medusa forms are found in the same animal. When both polyp and medusa forms which are found in the same animal, the two forms alternate in the life cycle. They alternate in the life cycle. This phenomena is termed as alternation of the generation, and we call it by another name that's called as metagenesis. Also called as metagenesis. I've written down here metagenesis. Well, some are of the view that the metagenesis should not be confused with the alternation of generation, because a metageneration is found in case of plants where the alternation of haploid and diploid form occurs. Okay, so the best term which we can use for this is that alternation of generation or the metagenesis. Well, this is one and the same thing. Now, coming to the most important here point that is important, that's examples. So what are the examples of the Coelenteritis? Okay, what are the examples of the Coelenteritis? Can you just say? Number first and the most important example is Hydra. And this is the important, this is a famous example. Okay, and number second is Obelia. Well, I will give you also the names, common names, which this Obelia is actually called as sea fur. And number third is Aurelia. Aurelia. This Aurelia is actually, this is a jellyfish. And number fourth, which has also been asked in the NEET and many other forms, many other exams, medical exams, entrance exams. So we call it as Physalia, and it's also known as by the name of Portuguese man of war, because it looks like a man with having a helmet. Man of war. Okay, and we have fifth called as Adamsia. Let me now first of all let me give you its name. Adamsia is also called as sea anemone. We have discussed about it, that it has got a bioradial symmetry. But before that, let me show you here that what we discussed. Wait a second. So this is actually, I'm gonna show you this is Physalia, which is known as the Portuguese man of war. Okay, so these are the examples here. You can also find it here. And getting back to the last page. So Adamsia, which is called as sea anemone, and sixth is Valela, which is called as sail by wind. Okay, and seventh is Fungia, also called as mushroom coral. And here is Panatula, eighth Panatula, which is called as sea pen. Well, there are many other examples. You can also find it on the internet, and you can claim those examples. But one thing I forgot to tell you is the the nitroblasters. Okay, nitroblasters. So they actually are the nematocystis. Also, we can also call them as a nematocystis or nematoblasters. Now, these nematocystis, which is actually the capsule. So sorry, which is actually the capsule. Nematocyst is actually a capsule. Okay, nematocyst is actually a capsule. Now, what I want to tell you is that they are of three types. Sorry, some say four, some say five, some say 11 even, but three are common. Three are very common. Now, the nematocyst number first type is, we call it as a penetrant. Penetrant. Okay, one is called penetrant or the penetrants. Now, what's the function of the penetrant? First of all, I will list them, and then I will tell you one by one their names, their function. And number second is volvent. Okay, also called as volvents. And number third is glutinants, or we can say the glutinant. Okay, glutinant, penetrant, volvent. So what's their function? Now for that I will choose another color so that I can make you understand what the hell is this. Now, talking about the penetrant, this is the first. Penetrant is also called as stenotale. Please keep in mind, you cannot find it in books easily, in most of the books. Stenotale. In most of the books, you will fail to find it. So this is called the stenotale. And, well, this is the largest nidoblast. This is the largest nidoblast. And what is its function? Its function is to inject toxin. Its function is to inject toxin in its prey or victim or enemy. Okay, so this is the function now. And number second is well, the toxin which it contains is called the hypnotoxin. This is called a hypnotoxin. Now number second is volvent or the desmonym. This is called the desmonym, also known as the desmonym. Now, what do you mean by desmonym, and what is its function? Its function is to coil around the prey. Coil around the prey. And we have here now the third important nematocyst, or we can say the nidoblast. Well, they are commonly interchanged. Both names are commonly used, also called the nidocyst or nematocyst. Well, these are some of the things. These are actually the tube-like structures. Now, the glutinants, or we can say the glutinant, their function is to attach to the victim. Attach to the victim. Okay, their function is to attach to the victim. So these are the three common nematocysts or the nidoblastos which are found in the cylindrators. Otherwise, there are many others. Even these glutinants, they are divided into two. One is called as striptoline glutinant. Striptoline glutinant. And another one is called as steroline glutinant. Striptoline glutinant and steroline glutinant. Well, this one is large one, and this one is small. Okay, so So this one is small. Or we can say another word is that steroline is the smallest smallest cnidoblast. Okay. So I think this was all about the phylum Cnidaria, and here we at the end I forgot to tell you one more important thing. Sorry to say that is that's classes of the phylum Coelenterata or the Cnidaria. Well, it has also three classes, three important classes. I will simply, it's not important, it has not been given in your syllabus, but still I will provide you these three classes. It's not important for you. So first class is hydrozoa, which I had already told you that I will discuss at the end of this topic, and this includes both polyp as well as medusiforms. Okay, the best example for this is Physalia, which you call as Portuguese man of war. Now, the second important is Scyphozoa. Only Medusa occurs. So, Medusa is actually the sexual form. So, this can be found in Aurelia. Aurelia belongs to the class second. Now, the third is Anthozoa. Anthozoa. So this includes only the polyform. So best example for this is, as many examples are there, the best example for this is as Adamsia. Okay, so this was all about the class of the phylum Coelenterata or the Cnidaria. Hope you understand the topic and hope you will answer all those questions relating with this topic or this phylum. So have a good day. Thank you so much.